Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we are here today to discuss the killing of a sacred deer. We'll be getting into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, then don't watch. Come back after you watch the movie. Or if you just want to be spoiled, that's cool too. It is day one of the 24 videos in 24 days. So we'll see how it goes. But Anthony, you want to kick us off with some introductions, please, sir?
Hello, yes. My name is Tony Self, Mr. Selfie on Twitter. I have a channel called Horrible. I usually do like gaming playthroughs, a few horror reviews as well. And thank you for having me on the channel, Steve. Much appreciated.
Anytime. And Chris?
Yeah, my name's Chris Moen, YouTuber, sometimes appearing on Steve's channel, and lover of books and movies, and in this case, specifically Yorgos Lanthimos movies.
And Chad?
I'm Chad Lutsky. I'm the one without the beautiful accent, apparently. But
Whoa.
I'm a writer.
Thank you for the beautiful.
I have about maybe 20 books out, I guess, and a big movie lover, even more than books. So I'm here to talk about Killing of a Sacred Deer. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, good stuff. So this is a interesting one. What did everyone think? It's one of those ones where it's like I had to really go back and rewatch some sections because I wasn't quite sure like what was happening, but what was everyone's thoughts on it? Kind of a broad question, but
Interesting.
I
go first. I counted the three in my head and nobody said anything, so I thought I'd jump in. Interesting one because I think a lot of modern, and I wouldn't even know what genre to put this in some ways. A drama, maybe more so than anything else. It certainly has elements of horror. It has elements of lots of other things in it. Elements of sci-fi even. A lot of those go for like relating big themes in the modern world to kind of like modern situations, whatever. And I don't even really think that Lanthimos does that. I think he does kind of the opposite. He takes like this tiny thing that he wants to talk about and then blows it out into something much bigger, which this seems to be. And without really saying what I think it's sort of about, I'll just say it was great fun. Cool, curling in some ways, a bit horrible in other ways, and at some stage I went, I really shouldn't even be watching this. Really, should
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, the kind of the deadpan sort of humor is really the macabre deadpan humor is really my jam. Like I came to Yorgos Lanthimos's kind of directorial debut. So, well, not his Dogtooth. I watched the Lobster first, and that was my like favorite film of. I think it was 2017? I can't remember now.
Something like that.
But that just enthralled me. So when this came out, and I knew that he was directing, I was in already. I didn't know anything about it. I did one of those kind of few things that we live in a digital age and trailers are abound. I forcibly didn't watch any of the trailers for this leading up to it because I just wanted to go in eyes wide closed, and I'm so glad that I did. And I think even in the trailers anyway, you wouldn't be able to prepare yourself to what you're about to witness, and that's what I love about his films. Yeah. So much so like then I went to go back and see Dogtooth, and was quite once again blown away by the things on display here, sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see it until last year. And it was I think I put it down as the best movie I saw all year. And like Chris, I was like, I think I told you, Steve, that when I got done watching it, I was like, man, I kind of wish I wouldn't have watched that. Now I'm super bummed out. And but when a movie has an effect on me like that, it's usually ends up being one of my favorites, and I can't stop thinking about it. Disturbs me to the point of, regret. And I mean, I see it as a horror movie. It's weird. It wasn't until after I somebody had mentioned the humor in it. I watched it as serious as can be. I didn't see any of the humor in it, but when they mentioned that, I was like, okay, yeah, there was definitely some. I can understand that really dry, like you were saying, deadpan humor. But I didn't see any of that at the time. I just saw this relentless thing that was gonna bum me out for a couple days, and I really liked it. I liked it a lot. It reminded me a lot of one of my favorite short stories of all time called "The Box" by Jack Ketchum. I don't know if you guys have ever read that, but
No.
Not yet.
just essentially about two kids and their father who are on a subway, who run into this man. They don't know who he is, and he has like a gift box, and one of the kids is curious about what's in it, and so he's like, well, what's in the box? And so the guy opens it up and shows it to him, and the kid stops eating, and he won't talk about what's in the box, can't talk about it. Finally, he tells his sister what's in the box. We don't know as the reader, but he tells her. She stops eating. She can't eat. Neither of these kids can eat. And they're dying. And nobody knows what's in the box and what happened. And it reminded, for obvious reasons, it reminded me a lot of this movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And right away, it makes you uncomfortable because the way that everyone talks. Everyone has a really dry, like almost robotic way of speaking to each other. They're not. They're almost like they're aliens trying to trick those that they're human, but very soulless way of talking to each other.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of how David Lynch directs his David Lynch. I don't know what he says to actors to make them feel both robotic and like they're horrible at acting. Like they're just horrible at delivering dialogue. He's great at that. It reminded me a little bit of that, but yeah, that brought some like intensity to it. You didn't know what was going on. Why are you guys talking like that? You stop. This is bothering me.
Yeah, I mean, just before we came on, I was just talking about. So there is a kind of Shakespearean sort of quality to it, the kind of monotone beats that go on, sort of thing. And like Chad, as exactly, I was just about to say the same thing, but a very Lynchian sort of like way of talking, which is very disconnected, very unemotional. But I think that kind of then plays into what is going on that you're seeing on screen, because I think it's the kind of thing that we're programmed to kind of, when you're like, as we are now talking, there's a kind of cadence to the way people talk and whatnot. And when you have that disconnect, it kind of brings you out of what you're watching, but it takes you, it's like a kind of learning curve. It takes you a while to attune to it. But once you then get attuned to it, you're in, like you're plugged in. And that's what I think. I mean, I'm sure there's probably, film students and whatnot that have been given tasks of like, study this film, particularly for and very interesting. Yes. I like the tones and the pauses and the kind of, I think it adds to the kind of element.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Leave it as speaking of pauses.
Yeah.
These characters.
Can you repeat what you just said? For the last like 30 seconds?
We heard most of it, but yeah, you kept.
Yeah. It's like Tony's one of the characters in the movie.
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Just basically having. Oh no, I'm going off.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
I'll say a few words and then hopefully the internet in Tony's part of the world catches up. It's interesting because that monosyllabic kind of nature of the dialogue takes away some of our ability to empathize with the characters. We don't really know the motivations of the characters because they don't get any of that from them, especially the characters, the two main characters played by Colin Farrell and Barry Keoghan here. We desperately want to know more about them and their feelings and all of that kind of stuff, but we don't get any of that through their words. So we'll have to look for it in other places. We'll have to look through, what they're doing as a result of their actions, and that takes time throughout the movie. You know, you can't do that within the first 5 minutes of the movie. You have to go through a process with it, and I think by the end of the movie, I had some very clear thoughts about a lot of the characters. You know, in terms of their actions rather than necessarily anything that they said or anything like that. So it's a really interesting side, and I think that comic aspect, I think, actually comes from the fact that both myself and Tony had watched The Lobster beforehand, and it's very similar. And The Lobster's much more obviously comedic, and you see a lot of the same beats at play here. So I think that's probably why the humor is more obvious, you know, coming from that place to here, because there's definite through lines that come through. But yeah, the robotic nature. I had a thought at one time that it was almost as if take a lot of the dressing up away, what people really say, and that's all you're left with. You know, take the ability to influence out of the way that you speak. This is what's left underneath.
Yeah, it makes you, like one of you mentioned, it makes you uncomfortable right away. It's like you can't connect with anyone because so you do have to judge them on what they do rather than what they say and how they present themselves. But it did and all the way around. Martin, I forget his name, Barry Keegan, that's his name. He plays a very good. I kind of wondered throughout the film if there was some kind of deal made and he was like a demon or somebody that was kind of because kind of imagine a surgeon having a god complex, or he had made some kind of deal, and so throughout the film you're trying to figure out who is this person and why does he feel the need to bring him over to his house and have dinner and befriend him and give him gifts, like what. But we find out why that he does that eventually about his dad.
Yeah, I almost got the feeling like he was a conduit.
I mean, I don't know if I was the only one thinking of
Yeah. You have to wake the mouse up.
At the beginning, I thought that there was some kind of romantic relationship between the doctor and the boy at the very beginning, you know, because I'm thinking, I don't know, A24, they don't hold back. This is going to get weird somehow, I'm sure. And, you know, with their dialogue, it was just, yeah. And it seemed their relationship seemed to be kind of, I don't know, secret almost.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, kind of private.
Yeah, the way that the meet is almost like they're in a tryst, you know, that kind of thing of like it's only between the two of them. So I can see where that idea comes from, certainly.
And it was almost like he was a secret, like he didn't want his friends to know. Like, don't come by the hospital. It was almost like a mistress, things you would tell a mistress, like don't come by the hospital because I don't want to have to explain who you are to me. But yeah, so you did wonder if there was something sexual going on there, the gifts and the secret nature.
And there was that scene where he's introducing Martin to a colleague, and he lies immediately, and Martin's very comfortable with the lie, which again plays into that idea of, right, we both have something to hide here. You know, he didn't correct him. If it had been an innocent relationship or one born in a friendship or something, well, that's not what I'm doing here, you know.
Yeah, very strange friendship, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah. Definitely. A lot of the cinematography too, it makes it some big wide shots of them when they're together, and when they're walking down hallways, the doctor is walking down hallways, it's always like a big wide angle shot, and it seems almost like he's just doesn't take up a whole lot of space in the frame when they're moving through hallways and things. So because that adds to it too.
Yeah. I see that's why Lanthimos, and especially these kind of couple of films, are compared to Kubrick in that way, you know, taking that view of the world and kind of then taking and following us through the wide angle into the close up or otherwise, you know, I've seen the view of the world. It's a beautiful looking film. Like, it really is a beautiful looking film for what is, in most parts, very plain and sterile, settings. The production design, like, it's literally in a hospital. But even when they get to their home, besides the painting here and there, everything's sort of a bit sparse. There's not the family pictures up around beside the bed.
Yeah.
There's not there's nothing like that represent the family. I think that links into actually some of the themes of the film itself. But yeah, it is quite sterile.
Mhm. And the dog always looks dead, doesn't he?
Well,
I never.
that was-
I was wondering, is that dog like a stuffed dog? Because it's always laying down. It looks like it's dead all the time.
Yeah, I can't remember. I haven't seen the movie since last year. So
Mm.
some of these nuances you guys are pointing out, I can't remember.
Yeah. There is that scene which is the dog definitely does look dead towards the end of the film when he's lying beside the car at the back, and she seems to be like cleaning up blood from the back, and I thought, oh, let's just kill the dog, and then next minute the dog's bouncing around, and I was like, oh, but the dog's not dead. But yeah, there's that kind of that kind of feeling like it's just the stuffed animal kind of in the background. Like it doesn't serve any function within the family either. Again, it's not a warm, loving family with the dog and as an integral part where every time they sit and talk together, the dog's there. The dog's never really seen as an integral part of the family. It's kind of just there as like a stuffed animal on the wall.
Like a prop to make them look normal. Almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I really appreciate the fact that things are not explained, and that's probably why this movie appeals to me so much. If this were like Hollywood doing this, then we'd have this whole, dramatic ending with explosions and stuff, and some info dump about who this guy is, and he probably would be a demon, and all. Hollywood just ruins good ideas sometimes, and I think that if they had their hands on this, they'd probably try to do something like that rather than just let it happen, man. We don't need to know. Just enjoy the ride instead.
Speaking of, it seems like the relationship was a little fragile at first, but it wasn't until I forget the main character's name. He rejects Martin's mom, and that seems to be where the conflict or where everything starts to go downhill for him. And I thought it was strange that he wouldn't be intimate with his mom. I thought that was weird. That's where he drew the line of where, no, I won't do that. I'll give you presents and I'll have you over and we'll be friends, but I'm not going to go there. Even though it seems like, and then we'll talk about the sexual relationship between the husband and the wife here in a second with the whole dead body thing. But I thought that was strange where that's where he drew the line of, I won't do that. So refuse to do that.
It's sort of fascinating because I think Colin Farrell's character by the end of it, we kind of just take as being he's not a very nice person. I don't think he has much in the way of redeeming qualities in the human race, other than the fact that he is a surgeon and probably saves lives in that way. But that he would draw the line at infidelity or otherwise is strange. And it's funny that it's sort of combined with that bit where she's coming on, where she starts licking and eating his fingers. I think we're supposed to like obviously that's a scene written into Repulse, the viewer, and kind of make us feel comfortable and therefore, explain what's happening with him. But you're right. When you step back from it, you go, but that doesn't fit with who he is as a person. He does seem like a bit of a narcissist. At the end of the day, he would be, very much that would be in their makeup.
Mm. And the husband and wife, I forget their names, the husband and wife that, I know she lays down and pretends that she's dead, basically. And that's kind of where he seems to be aroused when she plays dead.
Yeah.
She's a body. And the daughter does the same thing for Martin later in the film. And I wondered if there's something else going on there.
I'd forgotten about that. That's right. He he's got some kink. Yeah, I forgot about that.
But it's the same kink the dog has. I mean, the dog does it as well. This is exactly what you're saying. Like the the
That's
mom
funny.
does it, the daughter does it, the dog does it. I mean, sort of the son does it by the fact he can't walk and he just lies there for at least half an hour of the movie. In some ways, he is a cadaver in his own right and doesn't move. But it is a weird thing, you know, to point out. And actually, one of the things that's really strange about it is that it's only towards the end of the movie when things are really unraveling that she actually does get naked, you know, as like another step in this cadaver thing that she's doing. You know, most of it is kind of like in a form of state undress. Same for the daughter. But like this final thing where he ignores her, she is actually fully naked at that stage, and it's like, oh, right, okay. Definitely he's just not in that India as well, like I think at that stage.
Welcome back, Tony. Do you wake the mouse up? Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll get clear here in a second. But yeah, I did wonder if there was something else going on with the children, and because they all seem to play dead. She plays dead to appeal to Martin, and that's what the wife did for the doctor. So that was weird.
Yeah. It's like another level of but like Chat was saying, you know, we don't need things spelled out. The fact that is an unanswered question and that is something that can be interpreted or discussed or kind of say, like, I've got a lot of this figured out, but this doesn't make sense within that context. And, you know, I'd say, you know, in terms of somebody who's a storyteller or otherwise, sometimes you just put stuff in to fuck with people.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of say, I like this idea, I like this thing. I can't really explain it, but it definitely fits the tone and the theme of how weird this family is, you know, and the makeup of this family is. And, you know, there it is. They all do it. Make it that what real.
Yeah.
Do you do that, Chad? Do you just throw things in sometimes to mess with people?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me if I make my wife just lay there. No, I do not do that. It's the opposite of what I like. Yeah, I have. It depends on the book, but yeah, I have.
That's got to be fun though, to just throw things in like that and just make people wonder. What, you know.
Yeah, I mean, probably not to that extent. To see what, you know, but that's not. Maybe I'll do that. It sounds fun. Yeah, to mess with people, read reviews, and kind of giggle at the fact that they can't figure out when the world just happened with some part or whatever.
Yeah.
It's almost like an emergent bit of storytelling, though, Chad, if you know what I mean. You kind of threw something out there to say it fits within the world. I don't have a reason for it, but when people will go to analyze and, like you say, do reviews, you get a sense of who the reader is and who the viewer is by what they project into it and what they're saying. So I think as a storyteller, that would be like both an exercise in fun, but also kind of this emergent storytelling of, like, can you create this thing that has legs because of this knot that you left tied for people to then unravel.
Yeah.
There's a big fixation too on his hands, because there's a big, in the first scene, there's a focus on his hands and how he takes his gloves off and he's saving people, like he's almost like a god, that he's able to do that. And later in the film, that people are commenting on his hands and how beautiful they are, and they're trying to eat his hands and lick his fingers, and so there's a big focus on that, like his ability to save people, kind of like he's a deity, or he's some higher level, or has some kind of power.
I love scenes like that. That really awkward scene with the dude's mom getting all up in his business. I love stuff like that. That just makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was Alicia Silverstone. I didn't recognize her at first.
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
I knew I was attracted to her on a kind of almost primal level. I knew there was something going on there. But it's almost like that was his only redeeming feature for other people. You know, when people looked at him, it was like, oh, you have nice hands. There's nothing about the rest of his personality or the warmth. And that's the only thing that people could go on. And even at the end, the wife, when she's trying to insult him, actually uses the hands as the start of the insult, as the kind of bit to break him down, to kind of say this is who you are. These beautiful hands that you have are actually representative of all that's bad about you as a person.
Yeah, she does insult his hands, doesn't she?
Yeah, it's cold and unfeeling, and hands can be used to save people, but they're also, a connection point for us as people. We make often physical connections with another person. Think of the first time, you were dating your wife or whatever. It's that physical connection with somebody, even, is the bit that your body craves, and you kind of realize, where you are with people. Anybody touch, it's why people are kind of protective of their own space. Physical contact is something usually from the hands, that people either shun away from or gravitate towards.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I hope that A24, I hope that they just continue to remain consistent. Like everything I've seen of theirs, they're not all my favorite movies, but I haven't not enjoyed. Actually, isn't Tusk an A24 movie?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, never mind.
So.
I was going to say there. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I thought that was kind of dumb, and there's another movie that does something similar, but a lot better. And yeah. So anyway, I hope that they remain consistent. I know that like Blumhouse, when they started, they were putting some decent movies out. Now they just, I almost can't stand anything that they do.
No, I think they went to like almost like a formula, or things that, kind of like almost like they're going for low budget as much as they can squeeze in, and throwing in elements that seem to work and just hope for the best. Where before they seemed like they were taking more chances and doing something different, or at least allowing people to be creative with their space. And now it seems like they're kind of boxing things in and going for a certain formula instead of just telling stories.
Yeah, they feel like they're more for what we call on Final Guys podcast normies, people who are like younger horror audience, where they haven't seen all this crap before, or they've got some kind of agenda in their movie that's just shoehorned in there so bad, like the Black Christmas remake. Even feminists hate that movie. And then that's all it is a it's a what do they call those, public service announcement for how bad men are. Has nothing to do with the original Black Christmas, really. So but yeah, anyway, A24, I have loved them for a while now, like maybe 4 years or so, except for Tusk. I mean, Tusk was okay, but yeah. But things like like I've told you before, Florida Project, one of my favorite movies, A24. This one, yeah, and they do, when they do horror, it's all so unique. Hereditary. I consider this a horror movie, or an extremely dark, like, drama, but I don't know that I would recommend it to anyone who doesn't enjoy horror. If they're just I like dramas. What do you, I like to watch soap operas and stuff. I wouldn't be like, yeah, watch this, because they would be horrified.
Yeah. There's some very, there's a moment in this one when Steven is trying to get his son to walk, and he's carrying him through the hospital, and he tells that story, like he tells him a secret about him and his dad, and what he did to that's wow.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
The masturbation story. I just have written down in capital letters.
Yes. I forgot about that. Yeah. Wow.
That's your brain protecting you, Chad.
Yeah. I can't believe I forgot about that.
that filter. But that whole scene of him, and ultimately, I think this is what the film's sort of about. It's this idea that in the modern world, we only believe science. There's no room for the arcane, the mystic, or the things that don't make sense. And his stark refusal, even though he sort of knows in his heart of heart, actually, the outcome for his kids and the outcome for his family here, he will lift his child up and literally let him fall to the ground repeatedly. And at the end, his eyes are telling him that the kid cannot walk, and he pleads with the kid to basically tell me this is you making this up now. It's almost, he can't accept that, as a man of science or otherwise, that there's anything else here going on, even though he sort of knows that that's exactly what's going on.
I like how he insults his wife when she recommends, she kind of gives her hypothesis of what might be wrong, and he kind of tells her, like, if it was an optometrist, you're an optometrist, like, I don't really care what you have to say, like, kind of, that's how high of esteem he sees her. But he's that arrogance of, I'll figure this out, like, I'll make this better, instead of just listening to someone else, his wife.
Yeah, and I also think you've got that example between Colin Farrell, who's the surgeon, and then the anesthesiologist, who's his friend, and both of those professions are sort of professions that cater for individuals who like to feel power and like to feel ultimate control over people. Yet neither are willing to take responsibility for death.
Like how they blame each other, like, oh,
Yeah,
death is. I think he says the death is never on the surgeon; it's always on the anesthesiologist. And then later, the anesthesiologist says, it's never on me; it's always on the surgeon. They both blame each other, for any death. They never take responsibility for anything that goes wrong.
This is based on like a Greek something or another, right?
Yeah, it's like a Greek story of I forget exactly who was involved, but yeah, there was a death when somebody was traveling, and there was a death, like a goat died or something, and the gods smited him and made them choose someone from their family to kind of even things out. I forget the name of the story, but I did find the story after watching this one. That's kind of what it's loosely based on.
Yeah, as a writer, I thought it when I found out about that, because I mean, when something is written, it's usually drawn from, I mean, it could be anything from a picture prompt to just people watching a conversation, news article, whatever, or something like this. And it's so cool to think that someone had this germ of an idea, and then that's got to be the genesis. Is I want to write a screenplay or whatever, how they first initially wrote it, using this mythology, this weird story I heard, and how he built this family around it, this kid who lost his dad, the surgeon, and how it all put together. Really well done.
Yeah. And I especially liked when everyone was getting sick, and they kind of come to terms with, okay, we have to choose, like, and they all start politicking. They all start pulling for, they start trying to appeal, and well, we can have more kids. We should choose the kids. We can have another one. I'm not too old. We can figure it out. And then the son is like, he's trying to appeal to his dad, like, who's your best friend, but the daughter's like, I'll pick me. Like, she was ready.
But also in a manipulative way. In some ways, I think that's some of the most extreme horror within the entire film, is how the survival instinct kicks in, and they all kind of have their own way of doing it and their own way of manipulating. But like at the heart of it, I think you see that the kids are just like the parents in a lot of ways. Maybe none of them are really worth saving.
Yeah, man, that was when he was spinning around shooting that gun. Oh my gosh.
Oh, what a scene.
It was so hard to watch. When you guys were watching that, were you like rooting for someone to die? Like, did you have a certain character that you're like, I want this person to die if somebody has to die?
I was hoping Steven would kill himself.
Yeah, so was I. For most of the movie. I mean, and I think, again, there's one of the main themes of it. He refused to take responsibility at any stage in the movie for either his actions before, during, or afterwards. He never even discussed it as a possibility or anything like that. It was, but it did create a comic scene for sure.
I feel like if he did kill himself, that would have been. I don't think I would have liked the movie as much
Mhm.
Yeah,
because it would
exactly.
have felt a little bit more typical, like I'm the martyr kind of thing, a redemption
Mhm.
But also at the
instead of
very
just
yeah, I was
instead
gonna
of
say
just bleak.
but at the heart of it, that is again, this guy is this surgeon is never going to kill himself. I mean, he very much thinks that highly of himself as being, much more important than his kids, much more important than a lot of. It's important that he survives. It would never have been a thought that entered into his head at all. Even though most rational people watching that will go, well, would you think what would happen if you killed yourself? Like anybody that's a
Yeah.
good parent or otherwise would, that thought has at least entered their head.
I remember thinking I wasn't rooting for anyone or anything in particular. I remember thinking that uh, there's no way I can do this. We'll all die. I don't, whatever. But I'm not even going to begin entertaining the thought of killing one of them because do you really want to live after you've done that? What kind of quality of life
Exactly.
can you have? You're going to be miserable. You'll never find happiness again. I mean, another kid, what to replace? You're still not going to be able to replace the one that you killed.
No.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I
It's
would
I think
just,
almost
of you.
I would just, I don't know. I would probably just be in such denial through the end. It's like, yeah, everyone's bleeding out their eyes, but maybe something good will happen, or maybe this is a test, or whatever, and just hang on until we all, disintegrate or whatever.
it,
Or just
it,
like open a gas line or something.
yeah. But it's almost like the male version of Sophie's Choice, isn't it? The father has to be the one to make the choice. Well, in reality, it doesn't have to be that way, but definitely the narrative of the film points to that he has to choose one of his children, which is just impossible for sure.
Yeah. Does he need to be alive to suffer, or could he have chosen himself, or does he have to choose someone from his family?
Yeah, that's a good question because
Martin just says
that's the whole
somebody
thing.
has to die. Somebody has to die. That's what he says. It's up to you to decide who that is.
I would assume because he's the one that is being punished, that the easy way out would just be to take himself out, so he has to deal with the suffering like this kid has.
Mhm.
But to
I would
me,
assume.
the film is much more
Mhm.
interesting because if the fact that he could have killed himself at any point as being a solution is way more interesting, and the fact that it was never even considered. He'd stick a ski mask over his head and dance around the living room in circles and randomly fire off shots rather than even consider that possibility. And to me, that's at the core of one of the things that I really enjoy about the movie is the fact that all of those things were possibilities, and yet never a thought.
And the odds of hitting someone with a rifle like that in a room, like spinning in circles, how long could that take? That could take you could be there all night. Just like,
Yeah,
that's
how
the odds of you
torturous.
hitting someone. Yeah. And out of everyone, I think Bob, the son, was the most sympathetic of all of them. So it I think that was the biggest bummer. Not only that he had to choose, but that it was him. I think that made it even worse that it was the son for me, because he was the most likable one of the bunch, I guess.
Didn't like
Yeah,
any of them.
he was.
Didn't like one of them. Not one character out of the lot. If they all had died in a big fire at the end of it, I think that also would have been sort of satisfying in some ways. Kids obviously are uninformed. Him being the youngest, he had the biggest possibility of room for change or growth. But I think having those two as parents, those kids are preordained and are preordained to repeat the sins of their parents.
And I like how he goes to see the dean or whoever, and he asks them about which one would you pick if you had to choose one.
Again,
Yeah.
sort of hilarious though, like
Yeah.
properly funny, that part where he wants somebody else to make the choice for him. If the dean had turned around and said, actually, the daughter's, the chance to be the much better, he would have accepted that, as being the choice made for him. Like, it's so pathetic. in a lot of ways, but we as the viewer kind of know, yeah, A+ in our essay. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
No.
And other uncomfortable moments is when he asks him to show him his hair. Like, you don't have 3 times as much hair as I do, and he makes him take off his shirt and show him his underarm hair. Is it's
Oh yeah. That was really, dude. Oh my gosh.
I love that stuff because there's a couple of them. There's that. There is the fascination with the strap of the wrist or the watch. So the metal versus the leather. So Colin Farrell's character is pretty much trying to talk everybody into getting a metal strap because it's better wearing, will last longer, and all that. But everybody wants a leather strap, the dead animal around their wrist, and then then the really bizarre thing of watering the plants. These like minute details that really don't matter about anything, but are really important to certain characters. At the through it's all right. I'll water the plants for you tonight. Okay, yeah. It's sort of a microcosm of family life, but when I can't get my kids to literally do anything until they need money, and the next thing they're down doing whatever you unbounded, and you're like, so what do you want?
The awkwardness of those two when they're talking and hanging out and showing body hair off and stuff is what keeps you really engaged. For me anyway, because it was like, WTF is going on here? Because this is not how you talk to a grown man or a kid or whatever.
Yeah, really weird.
and then for the young female, like, you have a really nice body. That's real. Like, it's real uncomfortable. And even the scene where she gets undressed in front of him, it's like, as a viewer, you're like, oh, this is very uncomfortable to even be in the thing, because there's a big age gap between these two characters anyway, in terms of the story. But I sort of felt like, again, this is a classic case of the director just going, right, explore your feelings here. Like, how does this make you feel as a viewer? Do you feel uncomfortable? Do you think, again, I think in stories, people tend to do that, like in books, or they tend to do that through events that happen in the books. But films are different. Films, you can do it in just like a microcosm of a scene, just plant an image in there and then just go, okay, I've affected you in some way. It might have a small bit to do the story, might have a big bit to do the story, but let's get you to feel and explore. It's what I've heard a director talk about before. It's trying to take the passivity out of the viewing experience. You've got to get the person watching it to engage in the movie and ask themselves questions rather than just kind of sit and be entertained, like you would be in like a Marvel movie or something with big explosions. But like what Chad was saying about earlier on, with the modern approach to filmmaking, which is, oh, let's entertain you, let's get visual spectacular here. But no, I can get you to engage with this movie by just showing you a couple of images that may make you feel uncomfortable or make you feel sad, happy, whatever it is.
It's almost like he was almost torturing the daughter too, because she would try to appeal to him, and he would just be like, "Well, I have to go."
Yeah,
you gotta like bring her to that point, and then like reject her, almost like build her up, and then I have to go.
Although I sort of read some of that as a sadness from Martin's character, because he does say, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, or female I've ever seen," almost as an acceptance that, but you may have to die, and it's not my choice. And he removes himself from the situation then afterwards, basically saying he knows you could die and it would be a pity or whatever. But he stays clear of the whole situation the whole way along, doesn't get involved. Even when his own life is threatened, he's just like, well, you can do that, but I'll not be bothered, but you might be.
Very deadpan the whole time.
Yeah, very much. So that kind of monotone really pays off in those scenes.
I know it's been a while, Chad, since you've seen it, but what about this stuck out to you that left you feeling disturbed? Like, maybe I shouldn't have watched that. What's stuck with you?
I think it was just that choice that this guy was forced to make, and watching him do it. I can't remember if there was anything specific, but I remember that a movie hasn't hit me like that in a really, really long time. And I remember as it was getting toward the end, maybe the last 15 minutes or so, it was almost too much. For whatever reason. It just felt almost like this is just too much. Maybe it's because I have kids. I've been with my wife for 32 years. I can't imagine, more than half my life. I can't imagine life without her. And so to have this crazy thing happen and have to make this choice, that probably has a lot to do with it, just like with Hereditary and the family dynamics and the family trauma that happens. That kind of stuff is horrifying to me and difficult to watch, but if something's different, like I said before, if something's difficult and it makes me feel like that, this is going to be a movie that is going to be like in my top, movies that I've seen. So, and anything that disturbs me like that, where it's like I don't know how you guys are when you're watching an 80s cheesy movie and something new or whatever it is, but a kill happens and it's so grotesque that you start laughing hysterically because it's so nasty. And it's just, that's my reaction. When something really nasty happens in some slasher or whatever, I just start laughing so hard. And it's not like a nervous reaction. It's just, I appreciate what just happened. And oh my gosh, that was so cool, And so this is a kind of a different visceral reaction, I guess.
Yeah. I think part of it is you put yourself in that position of what would I do, and that's what makes it horrifying. Is you're thinking about what would I do in that position, or what what's the character going to do, and that's what makes it disturbing. That's what sticks with you because it gets in your brain. Where you see somebody die horribly in a slasher, it's like you pay more attention to the special effects or the practical effects or how they did it, and because it's not real.
Yeah, we're too desensitized to really, for that. If you've seen enough horror movies, it doesn't really phase you. Even something that probably used to be grotesque, like someone getting their head lopped off. It's kind of like, really, that's it? Why don't you have it run over with a steamroller or something, and or it just explodes? But at one point, the lopping off of the head was probably a pretty hardcore deal.
But then there's movies that even play with the kind of, as you say, desensitized nature of losing a head, and then there's other movies that are pretty sure it's on your viewing schedule here that play with exactly that thing, and it's still horrific within the context of the way that they set it up and the way that you execute it and all that kind of stuff. So I would say in a lot of slashers, the intent is to titillate, entertain, and find hilarious, because the whole idea of those kills are that they are supposed to be fun. People are turning up to see what fun ways people can die, what horrifically fun ways if you want, but ultimately it's a play. It's a play park, for the director and the writer, etc., to go say, right, let's do this. Let's do it in this way. Let's have the blood spurt this way, all that kind of stuff. And then the viewer gets this reaction and go, that was cool. That was awesome. Yeah.
Nobody shows up for a slasher to be told a cool story. We just want to see how each person is going to die differently. Are they going to be folded up in a mattress or broken in half?
Yeah. But I did wonder, who is Martin? For each of you, who is Martin? Like, what does he represent? Like, is he? Does he have some kind of special power, or is it the universe just balancing the scales, or what? Because he seems to have some kind of control over what happens, or who he decides what steps are going to happen, how long he has to make this decision, and he's not afraid of dying because they they kidnap him and beat him up and put a gun to his head, and he's like, go ahead.
I think in a symbolic way, he could represent guilt or shame because of what the surgeon was responsible for doing. Sometimes when we shame ourselves and can self-sabotage, like people turn into drug addicts or alcoholics, and they know it's ruining their lives, but they're just doing it anyway, and subconsciously they are trying to just self-sabotage. I don't know if that goes deeper than what you were asking for, but on a symbolic level, that's what he, to me, that's what he could represent.
I think it's interesting when you consider what the actual objective was. I mean, it's easy to look at it and say the objective was to kill a kid, but I think the objective was to ruin the family unit. Because it seems like if Colin Farrell's character had have shacked up with his mum, none of this would have happened, but it would have had the same effect of ripping open the family unit. And you go to the diner scene at the very end when they're sort of sitting together in that happy family in the diner, the three of them sitting together, but again, the family unit is ruined there. So for me, Bry Keoghan's character Martin is very much a conduit for whatever was supposed to happen, whatever was, whatever higher power was going through him to say, look, you tell him he has to do this so that he pays the price for whatever happened beforehand, or for the guilt that he did. And obviously the fact that he has no contrition about the fact that it was his responsibility. He was drinking, he was responsible for the death of his father. No contrition. There has to be a price to be paid there. And because once it all happens, Martin's just a character, walks through life. He passes them in the diner, they exchange glances, but there's no interaction from that point on. So
I wonder if him having a relationship with the mom, if that would be another way of evening the scales, because he would become a de facto father for Martin. So would that be another way of evening things out?
Yeah, because he would be,
these right,
in a sense, repairing what was broken, the family.
Yeah, that's true.
Welcome back, Tony. Can you hear us? There you go. Okay.
What a nightmare. What a nightmare. That's the worst feeling, honestly.
Yeah, that's frustrating. I hate that.
Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, I think guilt is a guilt, and he does represent some kind of guilt, and because Stephen didn't feel guilt for what he did, even I don't even know if he felt it after he had to choose, and the daughter didn't seem too bothered. She was she even gave him a look when they were walking out of the diner, like
so. She was down.
Yeah,
she was still like, down.
You have my number, So
but I will float this idea out here. I mean, there's nothing to say that Martin could do anything, really. I mean, it's all inferred. It's all kind of just laid out there that, it was him in control, but we never actually see him do anything. He's sort of around when the kids get better. He's on the phone, for instance. They can get up and walk, and then he's away. And yeah, I mean, it's probably him, but it might not be. It's just the fact that he walks away at the end. Again, these mysteries that you don't have to tie up and kind of leave as open threads at the end to say, make what you want. This is the beauty of this kind of open form of storytelling and drama and horror, where you just kind of say, look, I give you one version of a story. You might take a different thing away from I might take away from it, and it can all be right.
It also makes it almost more horrifying because we don't know.
Yeah,
that leaves you thinking about what it could mean long after. So leaving it a little vague is makes it worse. Yeah, look, Anthony's internet has been has been a pain, so it's rough when that happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of disturbing stuff, but yeah, I think, and we don't know if Martin is in control. He might just be the messenger. He's just the conduit.
Yeah, I mean, the only sign of I was actually just looking at my notes. The only sign of contrition that he has is that he hasn't had a drink in 3 years, as if that was self punishment enough. That's literally all that he's done from that point. And the one other thing I want to talk about is the music, actually. The soundtrack and the music. There's a couple of like 2 key points in the movie where you have this really discordant set of tone happens that is like the shattering of the movie, like the real turning point of the movie, both in the start and at the end. And the rest of the time it's like this lush, like almost orchestral suite that's playing in the background, and it's just so effective because when it initially happened, I kind of thought, oh, there's my phone's going, my phone's playing another piece of music because it was just so glaring with what was going on. But then when the events on the screen start happening, you go, oh no, this is very much by design.
Yeah, I do remember enjoying the music quite a lot. I love that kind of chaotic. It Follows has a great soundtrack too that did a lot of the same stuff where it was just very chaotic and it's like unnerving.
Yeah.
I think the end song, I remember seeing something about the end song. It's the first part of St. John's Passion, which tells the story of the crucifixion of Jesus from the perspective of the Gospel of John. The lyrics are so kind of, thou whose name is in every land is honored everywhere. So maybe some meaning there on what the end song for the end credits would mean when they're on the diner. It's almost like solidifies that Martin is their master and lord. He is in charge now. It's almost like they were kind of bowing to Martin, like he was they're kind of like like bowing to him, like he's telling him he's in charge and surrendering.
Oh yeah, and Martin's favorite movie. Nobody makes Colin Farrell sit down and watch his favorite movie with him.
What was it? It was
Vacation or something. I can't even.
It's
I'm surprised I'm even guessing.
Oh, Groundhog Day.
So it was Groundhog Day. This idea, that Bill Murray lives the same life, the same day again and again and again, trying to find this different outcome, which is sort of apt in this way as well. This kid dying will break that cycle in a weird sort of way.
Interesting. I didn't think about that. Yeah. I didn't catch that. Huh.
Yeah, that has to have something to do with it.
Yeah. Any of those kind of stylistic choices are always put there for a major reason. Anybody who reads like Sir Ridley Scott talking about the making of Alien and stuff, like there was literally nothing on that set that wasn't put there for a reason. And the background, foreground, everything was so carefully manicured. If you're going to build a room, you're going to build a set, everything is placed. Things just don't appear. It's just not like a house.
And that's why I love movies like this too, because that it's all deliberate. There's nothing there for just, it's all, very detailed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a wild movie, but a good one. It's one of those ones you want to kind of look into and find those little details and what they may mean after.
Hell of a movie to start your 24 days, Steve.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, hopefully some more. Well, I doubt any of them are going to be uplifting, but hopefully it won't be such a downer. How many have you watched already in preparation?
I've watched this one. I watched Causeway. I watched In Fabric. I'm watching Midsommar today or tomorrow, and I forget what's after that.
Ghost Story's after that.
Ghost Story, yeah. Ghost Story. I think Hereditary is towards the end.
It is.
Florida Project is towards the end.
I'm looking. I don't see too many uplifting films in any of that. No, that there's just not an uplifting movie in any of these, as far as I can see.
Can you tell us how you're watching all these, Steve, or is that a secret?
No, not a secret. I'm just one at a time.
I didn't know if I've got some friends who are, like, "Oh, where's that streaming?" And they're like, "Oh, I found a way."
Oh
I'm
no.
like, I got you.
I actually got lucky and I went to a few. There's a used like a record store, like they sell Blu-rays and DVDs there. So I've actually gotten pretty lucky with finding some used ones that were there for a few bucks. So
Yeah.
I kind of lucked
Nice.
out. Nope, they're not really sought out the way they used to be. But I did pick up some on Amazon, and I've been planning this for like a couple months. So I've been buying
Oh,
batches
cool.
here and there. Yeah.
I know that I picked up Hereditary Midsummer. I mean, I've already seen them, but $5 for a
Yeah.
Blu-ray on Amazon.
It's wild.
Yeah.
eBay, and for what would be studio kind of Blu-rays for next to nothing, you can just stick them all in your cart, 5, 6 at a time, and they just arrive, and you're like, I'm not really out that much money. It's less than a monthly subscription to a streaming service in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, have you yet? I know I recommended it. I wanted to know if you have watched Greasy Strangler yet.
I haven't. It's on my. I still have the tab open though. It's on my
Okay.
list. Yeah. Yeah. We have. Let's see. We have a Ghost Story Wednesday, Equals on Thursday, Remember on Friday, X next Saturday. It Comes at Night next Sunday. The Rover, The Florida Project, Under a Silver Lake, The Kill Team, Saint Maud, Locke, Lamb, Men, Woodshock, First Reformed, Black Coat's Daughter, Hereditary, Pearl, The Green Knight, and The Witch.
I've seen about maybe a third of those.
Bad.
Yeah. Some great movies in there, oh man.
Yeah. And I haven't seen a Ghost Story yet, but I've heard a lot of good things. So yeah, I'm trying to watch one a day is kind of the goal.
I look forward to chatting about that. When
Ghost Story
Wednesday,
it's not like a remake of the Peter Straub film.
No, it's not. It's its own thing, but it's made by David Lowery, and that's the thing about A24. They seem to give license to certain particular creative voices, like David Lowery has Green Knight and obviously Ghost Story, Ari Aster's Hereditary, and Midsummer, etc. But yeah, A Ghost Story is a fabulous movie. Again, imagery and just lots to talk about. I think about what it's saying and what it's doing, and kind of the open-ended nature of all of that. A bit like Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Hey guys, I'm back.
Wow!
Oh,
I mean, this is the best I've ever seen you look, Tony. I'm just going to put that out there.
It's been ridiculous. I'm sorry. I apologize so much. This so embarrassing. But yeah, my internet just seemed to take. I'm just taking my camera off now, just so it seems okay for the moment, but I don't want to risk it. I need to look into this at the weekend. Because Steve, I know like last time we had some issues as well, and it just I don't know why this does this, but yeah. So Killing of Sacred Deer, yeah.
You want to give us your thoughts on it, Tony, before your internet crops out again?
No, it's fine. I mean, as I mentioned before, I went into. I think you guys probably was hearing me go. Because I've just seen a play that was based on the kind of Richard Burton and Sir John Gielgud sort of play of Hamlet sort of thing. I do think there are cadences to the tone of Yorgos Lanthimos's sort of directional sort of ways of the way he does things, the way the monosyllabic sort of like tone of voice and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you've already talked about this. But it's just a fascinating sort of like fable type tale. And I think in a kind of Greek sense of the Ephigenoa sort of like myth and everything like that. I don't know if you kind of guys spoke about that as well, but you know, the kind of sacrificing of someone in a kind of Greek mythology type way has all this kind of like fable type elements, like with Barry Keoghan's kind of character. Like you don't know if he's this kind of this kind of demon type character. One thing that I wanted to take, I don't know if you've gone into it yet or not, sort of thing. I apologize, but like the kind of spaghetti scene when he's eating the spaghetti and he's like talking about his dad eating the spaghetti and like that's how he eats the spaghetti and stuff like that. I mean, that kind of flew over my head. If anyone has any kind of like comments on that in terms of, you know, what the relevance was to his dad who's not there. I think, Chris, you mentioned the fact that like when they go to see his mother, played by I don't want
Alicia
to say
Silverstone.
I was going to say Alicia Silverstone, but I, for some reason I was thinking of Boogie Nights,
Heather Graham.
Heather Graham.
Yeah, maybe that's just one of those kind of weird things. But yeah, Alicia, like she really does give a very nuanced performance in this film, and it does seem to be like he just wants his 2.4 family dynamic unit, and when it's apparent that that doesn't come true, that's when things start to unravel quite a lot, sort of thing. But with the whole, like from the beginning, like when he's like, you know, the whole, you know, there's this nefarious, is there some sexual element to their relationship with Steve and the boys, sort of thing? But does it, you know, it's like he's giving them the watch, and there's all these conversations about the watches and the watch straps and everything like that, and it just seems like this kid just wants a family unit, and he can't get that. And for whatever reason, I can't remember off the top of my head if they do actually talk about his father apart from the spaghetti scene. But there is that kind of, I think, Chad, you mentioned it, sort of thing, from what I can remember, is like there's this ambiguous kind of sense of like you don't know really much of like what's happened, and it's left to the audience to sort of decide. And I love that, with the lobster as well, and with Dogtooth to a certain extent. There's these elements that you kind of need to read between the lines of the pages. You know, in a comic book, for example, this is like the audience takes away what they want to take away, but you also have to kind of read what goes on behind the scenes and I love that about his films. So yeah, that was my kind of 2 cents worth at the end tell of it, sort of thing. But yeah.
Couple of points I'd come back on some of that. One, he was offered the chance to stay the night, because to me it seemed like he wanted to be part of the family unit, but he didn't want to be part of their family unit. He wanted to be part of his own family unit, which is why he refused to stay another night. And the spaghetti scene, I'd forgotten about the spaghetti scene, didn't write it down. To me, that was one of those classic things that parents do with your kids when you say how special they are, and then you find out later that those things aren't that special. You know, it's like the illusion of like what fatherhood or what parentage is, you know, the kind of thing where I thought it was special this time because I was left-footed, or I thought it was special because, in this case, the way you had spaghetti. Again, such a weird thing to write.
Yeah, but it's also but it is exactly, Chris, what you were saying there. Like, I think it is that thing of like when a kid. I'm sure when we were all children, we all thought there was something that we did that was like, you know, the super hit, like the thing that our parents may have turned around to us and said, like, you know, you're the best at that thing. And then as you grow older, you realize that no, actually, everyone does this. And, you know, this is just a normal kind of thing. But maybe that's what he's latching on to. Maybe this Barry Keoghan's character is like latching on to this thing of like, I ate spaghetti the way that's the only thing that he could latch on to for his father, for this missing father figure, perhaps. Who knows? But like, yeah, I mean, I thought it was I think it was a very poignant scene, but done in a kind of way that's very like, if you watched it, you'd just be like, what does that mean, sort of thing. But also at the same time, I think there's some poignancy behind it. Yeah.
Beautifully written.
Yeah. Anthony, what is Martin to you? Does he have some kind of power? Is he a messenger, or what are your thoughts on Martin as a character?
I mean, I think like in terms of the whole like what would you, I mean, I may have missed it. What would you guys call it in terms of like the curse that I can't remember, does he not refer to it as a curse, like this happened to me so that I'm giving it to you, or you've kind of betrayed me in a kind of way, so therefore I'm sort of now bestowing this on your family? I don't know if you've already spoken about this, so apologies if you have. I don't think he's a demon. I would like to think it in terms of, and this is like almost like a sort of gypsy curse. you know, in that kind of realm of you've betrayed me in a kind of way, and therefore now I am placing this curse on you. I found it more of a kind of curse type element rather than he's the actual. I mean, Barry Keoghan does once again, he's another fine actor, and we've seen him explode over the last couple of years. But this, I think, was maybe one of his more almost debut in terms of Hollywood style films, and he nailed it. He knocked it out of the park because he has that expert thing of looking awkward yet vulnerable yet also menacing, and that's a great eclectic mix for an actor to have all these type of things. And he did this sublimely in Killing of a Sacred Deer, even when he's like tied up at the end, like towards the end, and like, you know, the family, like he almost becomes like this godlike figure where they're like turning around to him, like saying like, how do we and I think, you know, even with Colin Farrell's character, there's a point where he still likes to think he's in charge. And I think there's this whole thing of you know, you can't be in control of things that are just completely out of your control, things that are kind of ethereal to you, sort of thing. Whereas Colin Farrell's character is a doctor, you know, you get this kind of like sense that he, you know, he's a heart surgeon, he's always in control, and he's not in control of the situation. So therefore, it becomes this thing of like this supernatural element. And I do believe that, yeah, that, I mean, there is clearly a supernatural element to this, but it's not played in a way that you find it in lesser hands, if that makes sense. It's played in a very nuanced kind of way. It's played in a very ambiguous kind of way. And I love that. Those are the kind of films that I really like, in terms of like, I think Chad, you said like, you know, second viewing, like, you know, this definitely is one of those type of films where you can watch it for the first time and you can sort of make your own ideas, and then maybe go away for a couple of months, watch it again, and then you'll come away with a completely different mindset, because you're like, wow, I didn't maybe think of this, or I didn't think of that. And so, yeah, sorry, Steve, to answer your question, I waffled there for a little bit. Yeah, I don't think he's a demon type character. I think this is more of a kind of cursey fable type element to play. Whether he got this power from anything, who knows? But I don't think we're meant to know. I think it's left better to kind of just go like, hey, he has this thing. He can say to your family, like, you know, if this debilitating ability to your children, they don't eat, whether you can change this if you sacrifice one of your other family members. And that's the way it is, because that's the rules that are set, basically.
Josh, A24 time. Anyone going to see Beau is Afraid? Very polarizing, it seems. I'm not keen on 3-hour movies, but Midsummer is great, so I've got to give it a chance.
Yeah. Sorry, Chad.
When I saw that trailer, I thought, if I knew going in watching the trailer that it was an Ari Aster trailer, but if I didn't know that and it didn't say it in the trailer, I would have 100% thought it was a P.T. Anderson movie for sure, because that's definitely what it looked like to me. And I'm glad that I remember the trailer to Hereditary still didn't know what the movie was about, whereas a lot of trailers nowadays, they're getting worse and worse. I mean, they're showing spoilers in trailers. They're showing the whole movie. Yeah. So I think he's doing it again. I think that it's enough there to kind of intrigue us, and you know, it looks pretty surreal. I can't make any sense of it, really.
The only thing that I could compare it to at the moment, that from what I saw, was the Andy Kaufman, the adaptation. That was my kind of knee-jerk reaction sort of thing, in terms of, you know, that type of film. Or what was the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman? Not India Secrecy. What's the one? I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. He plays like a writer, but it goes through his life as well, because I feel like there's a bit. What is it? What was it? Sorry.
Capote?
No. It was something in New York. I can't remember. Maybe I'm making my own films up in my own head.
Could be.
Could be.
I trust it, Tony. That's definitely a film. I'm aware to look it up.
Let me find out what it is. I'll come back in a second.
Yeah, I'll probably see it. Just because it's an Ari Aster movie, I'll give it a shot.
I don't get to go to the cinema to watch horror movies or anything that's remotely scary because my wife can't make it through the end of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So you know, she has limits. She can watch lots of things. Although she did watch Last Night in Soho, but I had to tell her it was a different type of movie, so that she'd watch it with me and then get shocked and surprised at certain points through it. So it's like, yay, and she enjoyed it. So
Yes. Along Came Polly.
I think I found it, but I can't pronounce it. Synecdoche, it's New York.
Synecdoche, New York. That's the one. Yeah.
Interesting.
But also Charlie Kaufman, right enough, Tony.
Yeah.
So, Tony, any other thoughts on The Killing of a Sacred Deer before we wrap up?
I just think if people are not aware of Yorgos Lanthimos' films, to be honest, I'd probably say maybe start with The Lobster. And only because of the fact that it's so bizarre in its kind of emphasis of, if you don't find someone within, I think, was it 40 days or something like that, you turn into an animal.
Yeah.
But it sets the kind of precedence of, hey, you're in this world now. Here you go. These are the rules. But you get enveloped into the world of this, and it becomes believable. So much so with Killing a Sacred Deer, I think is more of a kind of sort of thriller, sort of not thriller, but like it starts off. It subverts your expectations because you think one thing and then it becomes another thing. And then by the end of it, you're just sitting there going, oh, okay, right. Whereas Lobster is very much like a kind of, they go to this kind of resort. Dogtooth in its premise as well is like this family, once again, this family that are telling their children, the light switch means something else completely and da-da-da-da. It's, there are certain themes at play here. With Killing of a Sacred Deer, I think it's more of the kind of fact of how do you escape a curse that you can't really escape, sort of thing. You have to kind of make the ultimate sacrifice. But I think if you go into this blind, you may, dependent on what you're like in terms of like what you might get thrown a little bit because you might be thinking coming out of this going, what did I just watch here? Whereas if you see Lobster, I think Lobster is more commercial in terms of being able to process what's going on in a kind of linear way. And then going watching Killer of the Sacred Deer is like more of a kind of, oh, right, I get this now. I'm in the world. I'm in the kind of, I know what to kind of expect, sort of thing. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. And what is the next one that he's doing, actually? Does anyone know off the top of their heads?
I don't think he's announced anything. I was just actually looking that up.
Well, I will be in the cinema line. And I hope because I mean the collaboration between him and Colin Farrell is great. I mean, like the same kind of what we talked about previously about the kind of monotone sort of like speech that they do, sort of thing. And it's really interesting because obviously in The Lobster, Rachel Weisz, I started watching Dead Ringers. I don't know if any of you guys have. I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, Cronenberg.
Yeah, from the Cronenberg. Yeah, that's the one, sort of thing. But instead of Jeremy Irons twins, it's Rachel Weisz twins. And although it doesn't have the kind of cadence, if you will, of Lanthimos's speech text, whatever you want to call it, sort of thing, there is that kind of element at play, which is like a kind of you don't know what's going to happen in the next scene, and that's what I really love. Like, I mean, all right, if you want to go see, a kind of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania thing, you know what you're expecting, you know what you're going to get. But with these films, you don't know what you're going to get in the next scene. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. And I think in this day and age, subverting your expectations is the way to go, and that's what I love. I love being like sitting down watching something and like coming away with it and having so many questions to like talk to my partner or to my friends or whatever it may be and go like, what did you think? And then like having other people's been, because this is one of those type of films that you can go away and the four of us now are talking and like, you know, Chris, you may have an opinion on something. And I might go, wow, I didn't think of that. Chad, you might go like, wow, I didn't think of that. And Steve, you might I'll be like, wow, I didn't think of that. It's one of those type of films where everyone's opinions are, you know, you have your own coming away of it, of what you took away from it. But also at the same time, it's like, yeah, that could be true as well. Definitely.
Yeah. Poor Things apparently is his next one, although it's not written by him, it's only directed by him. So,
Pure Things.
Poor Things with Emma
Poor
Stone,
Things.
Willem Dafoe,
Willem Dafoe's there. I'm
Mark Ruffalo. Yeah.
okay. All right.
Interesting. Margaret Qualley.
Maybe.
There you go. Next year.
I wanted to point out, Steve, I asked you where you were watching these, and I just found out that I've got a Hulu subscription and an HBO one through that, but I don't have a Showtime one, and almost all of these movies are on Showtime.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And a few of them on HBO, but most of them are on Showtime. Like Lamb. I didn't even know Lamb was available to watch anywhere. I've been wanting to see that one for a long time.
Well, we'll be discussing it.
Yeah, there's like six or seven of them on here on Showtime.
Nice. I start to lose track of all those different streaming services that I have and I don't have.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's wild. But Chris, what are your thoughts on this one?
A fine movie. One that listen to me talk there. You know, for people of a certain age, like I'd say the fine fellas that are here, when you've seen a lot of movies and you kind of looking for something that is a bit different, I think we get that through Lanthimos movies and through a lot of A24 movies actually in general. And whether you like them or don't like some of the movies, you'll have an interesting and provocative viewing experience in some way, I think. So this definitely falls in that category. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Chad, what do you think?
Just you know, everything I've already said, but it's one of those movies that like Happiness. I'm not going to just the movie Happiness. I'm not going to just, you know, say anybody, hey, if anybody wants to watch a good movie tonight, go watch this. I mean, Happiness is a different demon altogether. You really get some looks for that one, but this would probably be more like if you don't mind being bummed out and you just want to watch a good movie. But I don't know that I would recommend it to like normies, as I was referring to them earlier. I could see somebody not liking this. I could see somebody not understanding, especially somebody who doesn't like David Lynch, doesn't understand like a different take, and they're just used to Hollywood blockbusters. They might not like this at all. They might not get it, and they might, you know, the type of viewer who either not necessarily needs things spoon fed to them, but needs takes everything very literal and doesn't read between the lines and wants kind of maybe the same thing, you know, which is unfortunately probably the masses. You know, I think I mean these superhero movies have taken off and doesn't look like they're going anywhere, unfortunately. I mean, I'm not a fan of them. I don't know if you guys are, but you know, people like to watch. That's why the romance is the most popular genre, you know, that sells, yet it's all the same story retold over and over and over again. So
yeah. I mean, I like a good rom-com.
Me too. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I love. I'm a big fan of the movie The Notebook. I loved that movie. But I'm just saying, you know, some people don't realize, you know, whether it be music, they don't realize that, you know, there's other music outside of what you're hearing on the radio, outside of this top 40 stuff. There's even better music. You just have to search for it and be open to listening to it. And the same goes for books and definitely film.
Yeah. Even better than the top 40? What?
I don't think there's anything even good on the top 40 or has been for a long time.
It's not for us.
Not that I pay attention to it. But
There's some stuff that's been on the top 40 for like 6 months.
Yeah.
It's wild. I don't know if any of you watch Rick Beato, his
Yeah, I
YouTube
do,
channel.
so.
Yeah, he goes through the top 10 and craps all over it every couple of months.
He doesn't. He tries his best not to crap on it, but at a certain point you can see he's so defeated.
I think I have seen that.
Yeah.
I think I have seen that. Yeah. I think that's the only way that I know, because I haven't listened to the radio in probably decades. I just don't, and I can imagine what's being played on there in the last 10 years. And yeah, I watched some guy doing that on YouTube, and he was talking about this is what's on that, and I'm like, wow, this is bad.
It's really bad. Yeah, and there's a whole nother conversation to be had about AI and music. I don't know if you guys have looked into that, but that's getting pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Well, they're incorporating the kind of chat, into games and stuff like that now at the moment. And there's, I mean, just not to sidetrack sort of thing, but like, I love the experimental element of using, AI, but also at the same time, it's that kind of thing of, I don't know, like, I mean, Steve, what's with the music sort of side of things? Is it like creating the kind of lyrics in respect of like, is it what Chat GPT sort of thing where you can like literally go like, hey, Chris, I saw Chris, like you can put in like Chris, X-Files, something, and it will come up with a whole story within like 2 fucking seconds. And it's an interesting concept. However, is it going to go? I don't know. Like, I mean, for me, it's phenomenally like it has that kind of sort of thing of deep faking to a certain extent. Like, where people doing reviews of things, are people now going to be, when you're a student and it's like, oh, I'm just going to go on Wikipedia and just copy and paste this thing. Is there an element of that that's going to be used in journalism in these kind of things? I mean, like whatever you might want to say about, your journalistic sort of how you're aligned to in respect of that. But is that going to be used now for someone that's back against the deadline? They're going, I'm just going to use this AI to kind of like filter in my last bits here and there and sort of thing. There's that element to it as well. But there's also an element where it could be helpful otherwise. It's one of those big debate sort of topics. It's a can of worms. And we've got the old can opener, I guess.
Yeah, it's not.
I'm scared of all that stuff.
Yeah,
I have lots of thoughts on AI, but for another day.
That'll be a fun conversation. But
yeah.
So, well, thanks guys for helping me kick off the 24 days, and of course, anyone's welcome to join any of the rest. There's a schedule, so if there's not a meetup planned, like for the Florida project, Chad, if you want to chat about that one, we can work something out.
I did look at the schedule.
I'm glad I could be here for the whole thing, I'll tell you that.
I was just saying, I did look at the schedule. I saw that it was May 9th, which is my wife's birthday, so I probably should tune in.
We can move things around. Yeah, we can move things around.
I like how you said I probably shouldn't, though.
No, we don't watch. No, we don't. Yeah. Well, no, we'll move things around. We'll figure it out.
Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly. Indeed. Yeah. See, if Colin Farrell had taken some of those principles into the movie, it all would have been worked out much better.
Yeah, could have avoided all this crap.
Yeah.
Well, he did say no to Alicia Silverstone, so
he did. I mean, another idiot decision. I don't know.
She should just play dead on the couch and be like, okay.
Yeah,
then Barry White.
The temptation would be too much to bear probably at that point.
Yeah, I'd be like, it's okay. Let's okay. So anyway, all right, guys. Well, thanks again for coming by. Thanks everyone for coming by and watching. And we will 23 more days to go, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Cheers.